I shouldn't have touched him, but the moment my fingers closed around his sleeve, the entire room stopped breathing with me, like the air itself had rules I had just broken. Rain was still dripping from my hair onto the marble floor, each drop too loud, too wrong, like I didn't belong in a place where everything gleamed and everyone moved like they knew exactly who they were. I didn't. Not tonight. Not with my heart racing like I'd just run a mile through back alleys that smelled like fear and wet asphalt. Please, I whispered, and I hated how small my voice sounded, how it trembled in a room full of people who didn't tremble for anything. That man is following me. He didn't look at me. That was the first thing I noticed. Most men would. Most men would glance down, take in the soaked hoodie, the shaking hands, the fact that I didn't match anything in this room. But he didn't. His gaze moved past my shoulder, steady, calculating, like I wasn't the problem that needed solving. Like I was just a variable. I swallowed, my fingers tightening before I could stop myself. Up close, he smelled like something expensive and controlled. Not cologne exactly. More like a place where decisions were made and never questioned. The music in the club softened, or maybe it was just my ears ringing, but I felt it. The shift. People noticed. Not loudly. No one said anything. But conversations paused. Eyes turned away too quickly. A waitress froze mid-step, tray hovering like gravity forgot her. And then I realized why. Because a girl like me wasn't supposed to touch a man like him. Because I was the wrong color, the wrong class, the wrong everything, standing in the middle of a world that had never been built with me in mind. My chest tightened, but I didn't let go. I couldn't. Not when I could still feel him behind me. The man who had been following me for 3 blocks, never rushing, never calling out, just there. Like he knew I would break first. Like he knew I'd run. And I did. Straight into the one place I never should have entered. Look at me. I wanted to say, but I didn't. Because something told me that if this man decided not to help me, there wouldn't be a second chance. Finally, slowly, the man in front of me moved. Not toward me. Just a slight tilt of his head, a shift of his shoulders. It was enough. That was all it took. 2 men I hadn't even noticed before stepped forward from the edges of the room, quiet, precise, like they had been waiting for that exact signal. I heard footsteps behind me stop. Not fade. Stop. Completely. My breath caught. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Not yet. Because now something else was happening, something colder than fear. Something heavier. The man in front of me finally looked down at my hand on his sleeve, then at my face. His eyes were darker than I expected, not empty, but deep in a way that made me feel like he could see every wrong turn I'd ever taken, every mistake I was about to make next. You shouldn't have come here, he said, his voice low, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to be heard. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, I knew that. I had known it the second I pushed through those doors and felt every head turn just slightly, like the room itself was deciding whether to accept me or reject me. I didn't have a choice. I managed finally, my voice steadier than I felt. He studied me for a second longer, and for a moment, I thought he might pull away, might remove my hand like I was something inconvenient. Instead, his hand lifted, just slightly, hovering near my wrist without touching it. A pause. A decision. You always have a choice, he said softly. Then his gaze flicked past me again, sharper this time, like whatever he saw confirmed something I didn't understand. But you chose me. The way he said it didn't sound like gratitude. It sounded like a consequence. I felt it then, the absence behind me. The man who had been following me, gone. Not walking away. Not arguing. Just gone. Too fast. Too clean. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I turned my head, just enough to glance over my shoulder. The space where he had been standing was empty, like he had never existed. No commotion. No questions. No one looking around. It was as if the entire room had agreed to forget him the moment he disappeared. I faced forward. Again, my pulse louder than the music now. What did you do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached up and gently removed my hand from his sleeve. Not rough, not dismissive, just final. The loss of contact hit harder than I expected. I solved a problem, he said simply. I should have felt safe. That's what I had asked for, wasn't it? Help. Protection. An end to whatever had been chasing me through the rain. But standing there, under the lights that suddenly felt too bright, in front of a man who had made someone disappear without raising his voice. I felt something else instead. Something colder. Thank you, I said anyway, because that was what you said when someone helped you, even if you didn't understand the cost yet. His eyes didn't soften. If anything, they sharpened, like my words confirmed something he had already decided. Don't thank me yet, he replied quietly. A chill ran down my spine. Why? I asked, even though part of me didn't want to hear the answer. He leaned slightly closer, not enough to invade my space, but enough that his voice dropped just for me, cutting through the noise like it wasn't even there. Because he wasn't the one you needed to be afraid of. My breath hitched. What do you mean? He held my gaze, steady, unblinking. He wasn't following you, he said. A bead of silence stretched between us, heavy, suffocating. Then, softer, colder, he was sent. My mind struggled to catch up, to rearrange everything I thought I understood about the last 10 minutes, the last 3 blocks, the reason I had been running at all. Sent by who? I asked, my voice barely holding together. For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Not kindness. Not concern. Something more dangerous. Interest. That, he said, straightening, his presence expanding again, reclaiming the room like it had always belonged to him, is the question you should have asked before you walked in here. My throat went dry. I didn't know, I whispered. No, he agreed calmly, you didn't. Then his gaze swept over me once more, slower this time, more deliberate, like he was memorizing details I hadn't meant to reveal. But now you're here. Another pause. Another decision I couldn't see forming. And now, he added, his voice dropping just enough to make my pulse spike again, you're part of it. I felt the floor tilt beneath me, like the world I had been running from had just shifted into something bigger, something I couldn't outrun anymore. I just needed help, I said, the words sounding weaker than I intended. He studied me for one last moment, then turned slightly, already moving on, already thinking 3 steps ahead of where I was still trying to stand. That's what you think, he said. And for the first time since I grabbed his sleeve, I realized something worse than being followed. I realized I might not be allowed to leave. I should have walked out the moment he turned away from me, but my feet did not move and neither did the weight pressing down on my chest, like the room had closed in just enough to remind me I was no longer choosing what happened next. The music came back slowly, like nothing had changed, like people had not just watched a man disappear without asking a single question, and that was what scared me the most. No one cared. Or worse, they understood exactly why they should not care. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to steady the tremor that would not leave my hands. And for the first time since I ran through those doors, I realized I was still standing exactly where he left me, like I was waiting for permission to exist again. That thought made something sharp rise in my chest. I was not that girl. I did not wait. I took a breath, then another, forcing air into lungs that still felt like they were back in the rain, and I turned toward the exit. 1 step. That was all I got. A man I had not seen before moved just enough to block my path, not touching me, not speaking, just there, like a wall that had always existed. I stopped. My heart stuttered. Excuse me, I said, trying to keep my voice level, trying not to show the fear creeping back in. He did not move. His eyes flicked past me for half a second, then returned, calm, professional, unmoved. You cannot leave yet, he said. Not rude, not aggressive, just certain. My stomach dropped. I am not staying, I replied, sharper this time, because anger was easier than fear. It always had been. He did not react. That made it worse. Please step aside. Nothing. Not even a blink. I felt it then, that invisible line I had crossed the second I grabbed Adrian Cole, the kind of line that did not come with warnings or signs, just consequences you only understood after it was too late. He said I could go. I tried again, even though I knew that was not true, not really. The man's expression did not change. Mr. Cole has not dismissed you. The words settled into me like something final. Not dismissed. Like I was not a person walking out of a place, but something kept. I swallowed hard, my gaze shifting past him, searching the room for Adrian, for some kind of explanation that would make this make sense. It did not take long to find him. He had not moved far. He stood near the back of the club, surrounded by space no one else dared step into, like the air itself belonged to him. He was speaking to someone, his posture relaxed, controlled, like the last 5 minutes had not happened at all. Like I had not just changed the direction of my entire night by touching him. Maybe my entire life. I hated that thought. I pushed it away and walked toward him anyway, because standing still felt worse. Each step felt heavier, like I was walking deeper into something I could not see yet. No one stopped me this time. No one needed to. By the time I reached him, the man he had been speaking to stepped back without a word, disappearing into the crowd like he had never been there. Adrian did not look surprised to see me. Of course he did not. "You are still here," he said, his tone unreadable. Not a question, a statement. I crossed my arms, forcing my shoulders back, forcing myself to meet his eyes even though something in me wanted to look away. "Your people are not letting me leave." A pause. His gaze held mine, steady, assessing. "They are doing exactly what I told them to do." My breath caught. "You told them to keep me here?" I asked, disbelief creeping into my voice despite my effort to stay calm. He tilted his head slightly, like he was considering how much to say, how much I was worth explaining. "Things too. I told them to make sure you were not in danger." "By trapping me." I shot back. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes shifted, like I had said something almost interesting. "You walked into a controlled environment," he replied evenly. "You asked for protection. This is what protection looks like." I let out a short, disbelieving breath. "No, this looks like control." The word hung between us, sharp, uninvited. For a second, I thought I had pushed too far. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close enough to feel like one. "They are not always different," he said quietly. I shook my head, stepping back half an inch, enough to remind myself I still had space, even if it felt like borrowed air. "I did not ask for this." "You did," he corrected, his voice still calm, still steady, like he was explaining something simple to someone who refused to understand it. "You just did not understand what you were asking for." My hands curled into fists at my sides. "Then explain it to me." Another pause. Longer this time. The music pulsed around us, low and distant, like it belonged to another world. He studied me, really studied me, like he was deciding whether I was worth the truth or just another problem to solve and move on from. "You said someone was following you," he began, his tone shifting slightly, more deliberate now. "You ran 3 blocks. You checked over your shoulder 5 times. You chose this place, out of all the places you could have gone." My chest tightened. I needed somewhere crowded. "You chose somewhere protected," he corrected again. "There is a difference." I opened my mouth, then closed it, because I did not have a response for that. Not one that made sense. "And the man behind you," he continued, his gaze sharpening just slightly. "He did not approach you. He did not speak to you. He did not rush you." A chill ran through me. I had noticed that. I just had not wanted to think about what it meant. "He was waiting," Adrian said softly, "for you to lead him somewhere useful." My pulse spiked. Useful for what? He held my gaze, unblinking. For me. The word landed harder than anything else he had said. I felt it in my chest, in my stomach, in the way my thoughts suddenly scrambled to catch up. "That does not make any sense," I whispered. "I do not even know you." "You do not need to," he replied. "Someone else does." Silence stretched between us again, thicker this time, heavier. I shook my head, backing up another step. "No. I would know if I was involved in something like that." "Would you?" he asked quietly. Not mocking, not accusing, just asking. And that was worse. Because for a second, just a second, doubt slipped in. I thought about the last few days. The strange feeling of being watched. The email I had almost opened but deleted instead. The way someone had lingered too long near my bus stop that morning. Small things. Easy to ignore. Until they were not. "I did not do anything," I said, more to myself than to him. His gaze did not soften. "That is usually when people become interesting," he said. I looked at him, really looked this time, at the man who could make someone disappear with a glance, who spoke like every word had already been decided before I walked into the room. "So what happens now?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He did not answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, just enough that I could feel the shift in the air between us again, that quiet pressure of something I could not control. "Now," he said slowly, "we find out why someone decided you were worth sending a message through." My throat went dry. "And if I am not?" I asked. His eyes held mine, dark, unreadable, certain. "Then you would not be here." The way he said it stayed in my head, not loud, not threatening, just certain, like gravity, like something that did not need to prove itself to be real. And that was what made my chest tighten, because I had spent my whole life believing that if I stayed careful, stayed invisible, nothing like this would ever find me. And now I was standing in the middle of it, being told I had already been chosen. I shook my head, stepping back again, needing distance, needing space to think, even though every instinct told me distance did not exist here the way it used to. No, I said, quieter now, but firm, you are wrong. I am not part of anything. Adrian did not argue. That was worse. He just watched me, like he had already seen this reaction before, like I was following a script he had memorized years ago. Tell me about your day, he said suddenly. The shift caught me off guard. What? I frowned, the word slipping out before I could stop it. Today, he repeated calmly. Start from when you left your apartment. I blinked at him, thrown by the question, by the way he said it like it mattered, like something ordinary could explain what was happening right now. Why? I asked, suspicion creeping back in. Because patterns matter, he replied. And you have one. I hesitated, my mind racing through the day, trying to find anything that stood out. Anything that felt different enough to explain why someone would send a man to follow me. Nothing did. It had been normal. Too normal. I woke up. I said slowly, my voice unsure as I tried to retrace something that suddenly felt important in a way it never had before. I took the bus to work. I stopped for coffee on the corner like I always do. His eyes did not leave mine. Which corner? Lexington and 42nd, I answered automatically. A flicker of something crossed his expression. Not surprise. Recognition. My stomach tightened. Go on, he said. I swallowed. I worked my shift. Nothing happened. It was just a normal day. Even as I said it, it sounded wrong. Not a lie. Just incomplete. His gaze sharpened. And after work? I hesitated again, because that was where it changed. Slightly. Just enough that I had noticed it, then ignored it. I left around 6, I said slowly. It started raining. I was walking toward the subway when I felt like someone was behind me. His posture shifted almost imperceptibly, like that was the part he had been waiting for. You felt, he repeated. Not saw. I saw him later. I said quickly, defensive without meaning to be. I just noticed it first. How, he asked. Sound? Movement? Reflection? The questions came too precise, too controlled, like he was dissecting my memory piece by piece. I closed my eyes for a second, forcing myself back into that moment. The rain. The streetlights. The way everything blurred just enough to make the world feel smaller. Footsteps, I said finally. Not close. Just consistent. He nodded once, like that confirmed something. And when you turned? He slowed down. I said, the memory sharper now, clearer. Like he did not want me to be sure. Silence stretched between us. I opened my eyes, meeting his gaze again. That does not mean anything, I insisted, even though my voice did not carry the same confidence it had a minute ago. People walk behind other people all the time. Not like that, Adrian said quietly. The certainty in his voice made my chest tighten again. Not with intent. I looked away for a second, my mind replaying the scene again, but now through his words, through the idea that it had not been random, that every step had been calculated in a way I had not understood. You said he was sent, I murmured, more to myself than to him. Sent by who? He did not answer right away. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone, sleek, minimal, like everything else about him. He tapped the screen once, then turned it slightly, so I could see. A map. My city. My route. My breath caught. A thin line traced the exact path I had walked from my office to the club, every turn, every stop, every hesitation. How do you have that? I asked, my voice barely holding together. Because he was not the only one watching, Adrian said calmly. My pulse spiked. You were watching me? I demanded, anger flaring up again, sharp and immediate because it was easier than the fear building underneath it. Not you, he corrected. The area. I let out a breath that did not feel like relief. That is not better. He did not respond to that. His attention stayed on the map for a second longer, then shifted back to me. You changed direction twice, he said. Once near the bookstore, once near the subway entrance. I blinked, thrown again by how much he knew. I thought I lost him, I said. You did not, Adrian replied. He wanted you to think that. A cold realization slid into place. So he could follow me somewhere else. I finished quietly. Adrian nodded once. Somewhere that mattered. I looked around the club, The polished floors, the quiet power in every corner, the way people moved like they understood rules I had never been taught. Here, I whispered. You let him here, Adrian said. Not accusing, just stating a fact. My stomach dropped. I did not know, I said quickly, the words coming out faster now. Urgent, desperate to separate myself from whatever this was. I swear I did not know. I know, he said. The calm in his voice surprised me more than anything else. I looked at him, searching his face for doubt, for suspicion, for anything that suggested he might not believe me. I did not find it. That scared me more. Then why am I still here? I asked, my voice quieter now, the fight draining out of me as reality settled in. He studied me for a long moment, like he was weighing something I could not see. Because now, he said slowly, you are the only person who does not know why you matter. The words settled heavily between us. I felt them in my chest, in my throat, in the way my thoughts suddenly felt too loud and too quiet at the same time. I do not matter, I said, almost reflexively, like I had said it 100 times before in different ways, in different places. Not like this. Adrian's gaze did not waver. That is not your decision, he said quietly. Silence followed, thick and unsteady. I looked down at my hands, still trembling slightly, still carrying the echo of rain and fear and something I could not name yet. So what do? I asked finally. He did not hesitate this time. You stay, he said. I looked up at him, my chest tightening again. And if I do not? A pause. Not long. Just long enough to feel deliberate. Then you leave, he said. My breath caught. And his eyes held mine, steady, unflinching. And you will find out very quickly why someone decided you were worth following in the first place. The room felt colder. Smaller. Like the choice he was offering was not a choice at all. I swallowed, my heart beating too fast, too loud, like it was trying to warn me about something I still could not see. You said you wanted to help me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I did, he replied. This is me helping. I stared at him, at the man who had turned a simple plea for help into something bigger, something heavier, something I could not walk away from anymore. And for the first time since I ran into him, I understood something I should have realized the moment I touched him. Help from someone like Adrian Cole did not come without consequences. It came with ownership. Not of me. Not yet. But of what happened next. I did not answer right away because something inside me was still trying to hold on to the idea that I could walk out of this and go back to who I was an hour ago. Back to a life where the worst thing I had to worry about was being late on rent or missing the bus. But the way Adrian looked at me made that version of my life feel distant, like something I had already lost without realizing it. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to think past the fear, past the way my pulse kept reminding me that nothing about this was normal. If I stay, I said carefully, choosing each word like it mattered, because it felt like it did. What exactly does that mean? Adrian did not answer immediately. His gaze moved past me for a brief second, scanning the room like he was checking something I could not see, then returned to me with that same steady focus that made it impossible to look away for long. It means you stop reacting, he said, and you start paying attention. I frowned slightly, tension pulling at my shoulders. I have been paying attention. No, he replied calmly. You have been surviving. The correction landed deeper than I expected. I felt it in the way my jaw tightened, in the way my mind immediately pushed back, even though a small part of me knew he was not entirely wrong. Surviving had always been enough. Until now. Then what am I supposed to be paying attention to? I asked, my voice quieter, more controlled. Adrian took a step to the side, gesturing slightly with his hand. Not an order. Not quite. But it felt like one. Walk with me. I hesitated for half a second, my instincts screaming at me to stay where I was, to keep some kind of distance, but distance had already proven to be an illusion tonight. So I moved. We walked through the club without anyone getting in our way. People shifted before we reached them, conversations lowering, eyes sliding away like they knew better than to hold his gaze for too long. I felt it again, that invisible divide, the way the room adjusted around him without him having to say a word. Power did not announce itself here. It just existed. Look, Adrian said quietly as we passed a group near the bar. I followed his gaze. At first, I saw nothing unusual. People talking, laughing, drinking, normal. Then I noticed it. A man standing slightly apart, not engaged, not relaxed. Watching. Not the room. Not the music. Me. My breath caught. Do not turn your head, Adrian added, his voice low, close enough that only I could hear it. Use the mirror. I swallowed and shifted my gaze just enough to catch the reflection in the glass behind the bar. The man was still there. Still watching. Not moving. Not approaching. Just present. The same pattern. The same quiet patience. My stomach tightened. Is that another one? I whispered. No, Adrian said. That one is curious. I blinked, confusion cutting through the fear for a second. What does that mean? It means he does not know what you are yet, Adrian replied. But he knows I do. The implication settled slowly, heavily. I looked forward again, my steps faltering for just a fraction of a second before I forced myself to keep walking. So now people are watching me because of you, I said. No, Adrian corrected. They were watching you before. He paused, just slightly. Now they are trying to understand why I am. We stopped near a quieter corner of the room, where the music felt more distant and the lighting softened just enough to make everything seem less sharp, less immediate, even though the tension in my chest had not eased at all. I turned to face him fully, my arms crossing again without me thinking about it. You said I needed to pay attention, I said. I am paying attention. I still do not understand what I am looking for. Adrian studied me for a moment, like he was measuring something I could not see. Patterns, he said again. Who looks at you? Who avoids you? Who pretends you are not there? I let out a quiet breath, my eyes moving instinctively around the room, trying to separate what was normal from what was not, trying to see. What he saw? It was harder than I expected. Everything blurred together, people and movement and noise, until it all felt like one continuous motion. I cannot tell, I admitted finally. That is because you are still thinking like someone who believes this is random, he said. It is not. I looked back at him, frustration creeping in again. Then tell me what it is. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened again, like I had stepped closer to something important without realizing it. It is interest, he said. And interest is never accidental. I shook my head slightly, trying to keep up, trying to make sense of something that felt just out of reach. Interest in what? I asked. Adrian held my gaze, steady, unflinching. In what you might know. The words landed quietly, but they hit harder than anything else he had said so far. I felt it in my chest, in the way my thoughts immediately scrambled again, searching for something I could have seen, something I could have done, anything that would explain why this was happening. I do not know anything, I said, the words coming out faster now, more urgent. I told you that. You believe that, Adrian replied. That does not make it true. My hands tightened against my arms, my nails pressing into my sleeves as I tried to hold on to something solid, something that made sense. Then what am I missing? I asked, my voice quieter now, edged with something that felt dangerously close to fear again. Adrian did not answer right away. Instead, he reached out, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the shift in the air again, that same controlled presence that had drawn every eye in the room without effort. That is what we are going to find out, he said. A pause. Then, softer, more deliberate. And until we do, you do not leave my sight. My breath caught. That is not protection, I said quietly. That is surveillance. It is both, he replied without hesitation. I stared at him, at the man who spoke like control was a language he had been fluent in his entire life, like lines between safety and ownership did not exist the way I understood them. And if I say no? I asked, even though the question felt weaker now, like I already knew. The answer. Adrian's gaze did not waver. Then you walk out that door, he said. And you take your chances with people who have already decided you are worth following. Silence fell between us again, heavier this time, more final. I looked around the room one more time, at the faces that now felt different, at the subtle shifts I had not noticed before, at the way the world had changed without asking for my permission. Then I looked back at him. And for the first time since I ran into him, I understood something clearly. Staying was not about trusting him. It was about not trusting anything outside of him. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders dropping just a fraction as the decision settled into place. Not comfortable, not safe, but necessary. Fine, I said quietly. Adrian did not smile. He did not nod. He just looked at me like he had already known what I would choose. Good, he said. And somehow, that single word felt like the moment everything truly began. The moment I said yes, Something shifted in the way people looked at me. Not openly, not enough for anyone to call it out, but just enough that I could feel it, like a current under the surface that only made sense once you knew it was there. I stayed where I was for a second, letting the words settle in my chest, letting it echo in a way that felt heavier than it should have. Fine. It did not sound like agreement. It sounded like surrender. Adrian turned slightly, not checking if I followed this time, just moving like it was already decided, and I realized that was the difference between his world and mine. In my world, people asked. In his, they assumed. I stepped forward anyway, matching his pace, even though every part of me was still trying to catch up to the decision I had just made. We moved toward a quieter section near a hallway I had not noticed before, the kind of place where the music faded and the lighting dimmed just enough to make everything feel more private, more controlled. Two men stood near the entrance, both stepping aside the moment Adrian approached, their attention flicking briefly toward me before returning to him. Not curious, not surprised, just aware. I felt it again, that silent judgment, the unspoken question of why I was here, of what I was to him. And for a second, it pressed against something old inside me, something I had spent years learning how to ignore. I straightened my shoulders slightly, refusing to shrink under it, even if I could feel it. Adrian did not slow down. Stay close, he said quietly, not looking back. I let out a small breath. I thought I was not allowed to leave your sight anyway. There was the faintest pause in his step, almost like I had said something that caught his attention. You are learning, he replied. I did not know if that was a compliment or a warning. We entered the hallway, and the sound of the club dropped away almost completely, replaced by something quieter, more contained, like the building itself had layers, and I had just stepped into one I was never meant to see. The air felt different here. Cleaner. Colder. I wrapped my arms around myself again, not from temperature, but from the way the silence made everything feel sharper. Where are we going? I asked. Adrian glanced at me briefly. Somewhere you can think. I frowned slightly. I have been thinking. No, he said calmly. You have been reacting. The word hit again, just like before, but this time I did not push back. I was starting to see what he meant, even if I did not like it. We stopped in front of a door at the end of the hallway. One of the men behind us stepped forward, opening it without a word, and Adrian gestured for me to go in first. I hesitated, just for a second, the instinct to pause still fighting with the knowledge that hesitation did not seem to matter here. Then I stepped inside. The room was quiet. No music. No crowd. Just a low table, a few chairs, and a wall of glass that looked out over the city, the rain still falling in thin streaks that caught the light from below. For the first time since I ran into the club, I could actually hear my own breathing. Adrian followed me in, and the door closed behind us with a soft, final sound that made my chest tighten again. I moved closer to the window without thinking, drawn to the view, to the sense of distance it gave me, like I could step back from everything that had just happened and see it from far enough away to understand it. It did not work. Start again, Adrian said behind me. I turned slightly, leaning back against the cool glass. I already told you everything. You told me what you noticed, he corrected. Now tell me what you ignored. I blinked at him, caught off guard again. Ignored. The things that felt wrong, he said. The things you chose not to think about. My mind went quiet for a second. Then, slowly, pieces started to come back. Not in order, not clearly, but enough to make something in my chest tighten. There was a car, I said, the memory forming as I spoke. Parked across from the coffee shop this morning. Adrian did not interrupt. It was not unusual, I added quickly. There are always cars there. But, he prompted. I swallowed. But it was still there when I left. Same spot. Same engine running. A small pause. Continue. I looked down at my hands, watching the slight tremor that still had not fully gone away. And there was a guy on the bus, I said. He did not get off at any of the stops. He just stayed on. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Did he look at you? No, I said. That was the weird part. He did not look at anything. Silence stretched again, but this time it felt different. More focused. More intentional. I exhaled slowly, my thoughts moving faster now, connecting things I had dismissed before. And my phone, I added, frowning. It glitched this afternoon. Just for a second. I thought it was the signal. Adrian's eyes held mine. And now? I shook my head slightly. Now I do not think it was. The room felt smaller again, even with the city stretching out in front of me. I pushed myself off the glass, stepping closer to the table without really thinking about it. You are saying all of this is connected, I said. That someone has been watching me all day. Longer than that, Adrian replied. My breath caught. That is not possible. It is, he said simply. I stared at him, the weight of that statement pressing down on everything I thought I understood about my life, about how visible I had been, about how easy it had always been to believe I was just another face. In a city full of people. Why? I asked, the question finally coming out the way it had been building inside me. Why me? Adrian did not answer right away. He walked toward the table, picking up a small device I had not noticed before, turning it over in his hand like he was considering something. Then he looked at me again, and for the first time since I met him, there was something in his expression that was not just control. It was calculation. That, he said slowly, is what we are about to find out. A pause. Then he added, quieter, more deliberate, because people do not invest this much attention without expecting something in return. I felt that settle in my chest, heavy and sharp and impossible to ignore. And if I cannot give them what they want? I asked. Adrian held my gaze, steady as ever. Then they will assume you already have. Silence filled the room again, thicker than before, pressing against the walls, against my thoughts, against the fragile sense of control I was trying to hold on to. I looked back out at the city, at the rain, at the streets that suddenly felt very far away. And for the first time since this started, I realized something I could not unsee. I had not just been followed. I had been chosen long before I ever noticed. The word chosen would not leave my head. It sat there heavier than everything else he had said, heavier than the rain outside, heavier than the silence in the room, like it had roots that reached further back than tonight, further back than the moment I started running. Like this had been set in motion long before I even noticed something was wrong. I crossed my arms tighter, trying to hold on to something steady, something familiar, but nothing about this felt familiar anymore. Then we find out, I said, more to myself than to him, but my voice came out steadier than I expected. Adrian watched me closely, like he was measuring the shift, like he was tracking the moment I stopped resisting and started adapting. Yes, he said quietly. We do. The room felt still, like everything was waiting for the next move, and for a second I did not know if that move was supposed to come from him or from me. I exhaled slowly, forcing my thoughts into order. What do you need from me? I asked. His answer came immediately. Your phone. I blinked, caught off guard again. What? Your phone? He repeated, holding out his hand, calm, expectant, like this was the simplest request in the world. I hesitated. It was instinct. That small, stubborn part of me that still believed I could keep something for myself, that I did not have to hand everything over just because I had stepped into his world. He did not rush me. That made it harder. Why? I asked, even though I could already guess. Because whatever they want from you, he said, it is not random, and it is not recent. His eyes held mine, steady, unblinking. And your phone knows more about you than you think. The truth in that sat heavy in my chest. Messages, emails, locations, things I barely paid attention to anymore, but that mapped out my life in ways I had never considered. I reached into my pocket slowly, pulling it out, the screen lighting up in my hand like nothing had changed, like it was still just a normal night. It felt strange now. Smaller. Less mine. I placed it in his hand. He did not look at it right away. Instead, he glanced toward the door, and within seconds, it opened. One of his men stepped in, silent, efficient, like he had been waiting just outside the entire time. Adrian handed him the phone without explanation. Full scan, he said simply. The man nodded once and left. No questions. No hesitation. The door closed again, sealing the room back into that quiet, controlled space. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. You do not waste time, I said. Neither do they, Adrian replied. That reminder landed sharp. I moved toward the table, pulling out one of the chairs and sitting down, more because my legs felt unsteady than because I wanted to. The adrenaline from earlier was fading, leaving behind something heavier, something slower, like my body was finally catching up to everything that had happened. Adrian remained standing for a moment, then took the seat across from me, his posture relaxed but precise, like even sitting was a decision he controlled. Tell me something, I said, leaning forward slightly, my voice quieter now, more focused. If they wanted me to lead them to you, why not just come in themselves? Why follow me at all? Adrian's expression did not change, but there was a flicker of approval in his eyes, like I had asked the right question. Because walking in here uninvited would mean something very different, he said. It would mean escalation. I frowned slightly. And this does not. This, he said calmly, is observation. The distinction settled slowly. They are testing, I said. They are measuring, he corrected. You. Me. The reaction. I leaned back in my chair, processing that. The idea that tonight was not an attack, not a mistake, but something more calculated, something quieter and more dangerous in its own way. So I am part of some kind of message, I said. A variable, Adrian replied. I let out a small breath, shaking my head slightly. I do not like the way that sounds. You are not supposed to, he said. Silence fell again, but this time it felt different. Less chaotic, more structured, like the pieces were starting to take shape, even if I did not fully understand the picture yet. I looked up at him, studying him in a way I had not allowed myself to before, really seeing the way he carried himself, the way nothing about him seemed rushed or uncertain, like he had already considered every possible outcome before I even walked into his life. You already have a theory, I said. It was not a question. He did not deny it. I have possibilities, he replied. Then tell me one. He held my gaze for a moment, then leaned back slightly in his chair. The simplest one, he said, is that you saw something you were not meant to see. My mind immediately pushed back. I did not, I said. You believe that, he replied again, echoing his earlier words, and I felt the same frustration rise, sharper this time. No, I know that, I insisted. I went to work, I got coffee, I went home. That is it. And yet, he said quietly, someone disagrees. I opened my mouth, then closed it again, because I did not have an answer for that. Not one that made sense. Not one that explained why my entire day was suddenly being dissected like it was evidence of something bigger. A soft knock interrupted the silence. Adrian did not look away from me. Come in, he said. The door opened again, and the same man stepped inside, holding my phone. He walked over and handed it back to Adrian, then stepped aside, waiting. Adrian glanced down at the screen, his expression unreadable as he scrolled through something I could not see. Seconds passed. Maybe more. Then he stopped. Something in his posture shifted. Not much. Just enough. What is it? I asked, my voice tightening despite my effort to stay calm. He did not answer right away. Instead, he turned the phone slightly, angling it so I could see the screen. An email. Unopened. The subject line alone made my chest tighten. I did not recognize the sender. I did not remember receiving it. I did not open that. I said quickly. I know, Adrian replied. His eyes lifted to meet mine, steady, sharp, certain. That is why it matters. I swallowed, my pulse picking up again. What is in it? He held my gaze for a second longer, then spoke, his voice lower now, more deliberate. That is what they wanted you to bring to me. The words hit harder than anything else tonight. I stared at the screen, at the message I had ignored, dismissed, forgotten, and felt something shift deep in my chest, something cold and undeniable. I had not been chosen because I was important. I had been chosen because I was useful, and I had no idea what I was carrying. I stared at the email like it might change if I blinked, like the words on the screen would rearrange themselves into something harmless, something normal, but they did not, and the longer I looked at it, the heavier it felt, like it carried more than just text, like it carried intention. I do not even remember getting this, I said, my voice quieter now, edged with something that felt too close to panic for comfort. Adrian did not take the phone back right away. He let me look. Let me process. Let me feel the weight of it before he stepped in again. That is the point, he said. You were not supposed to notice it. You were supposed to carry it. The word carry made my stomach twist. Carry it where? I asked, even though I already knew the answer, even though the answer was standing right in front of me. Adrian's gaze did not soften. Here. Silence filled the room again, thicker than before, pressing against every thought I tried to form. I looked down at the phone again, at the unopened message, at the sender I did not recognize, and for the first time, I felt something shift in the way I saw my own day, like every small detail had been placed instead of happening naturally, like I had been moving through a path someone else designed without realizing it. So they used me, I said slowly. Not a question, Not really. Adrian nodded once. Yes. I let out a breath that felt too sharp, too thin. And you knew? He did not deny it. That hurt more than I expected. You knew the moment I walked in here, I said, my voice tightening, something hot rising under my skin that felt like anger, like frustration, like the need to push back against something I could not control. You saw it before I did. I saw the possibility, he corrected calmly. There is a difference. Not to me. I snapped before I could stop myself. The words hung in the air, sharp and immediate, and for a second, I wondered if I had crossed another line I did not understand. Adrian did not react the way I expected. He did not get angry. He did not shut me down. He just watched me, steady, like he was waiting to see what I would do next. That made it worse. I looked away first, exhaling slowly, trying to pull myself back together. What is in it? I asked again, quieter this time, more controlled. Adrian finally took the phone back, his fingers moving across the screen with precise, deliberate motions. He did not rush. He did not hesitate. Then he opened the message. I leaned forward slightly without meaning to, my attention locked on the screen, on whatever had turned my entire night into something I could not walk away from anymore. It was not what I expected. No threats. No obvious warning. Just a file. Attached. Simple. Clean. Almost ordinary. That is it. I asked, confusion cutting through everything else for a second. That is what they sent. Adrian's expression did not change, but his eyes stayed on the file longer than they had on anything else tonight. Nothing they do is simple, he said quietly. He tapped the screen once. Opening it. The file loaded slowly, like it was pulling something from somewhere deeper than my phone should have been able to access. Then it appeared. A list. Names. Numbers. Locations. I frowned, trying to make sense of it, trying to connect it to anything that meant something to me. It did not. I do not understand, I said. Adrian did not look at me. His attention stayed on the screen, his focus narrowing in a way I had not seen before, like this was the first thing tonight that actually mattered. You are not supposed to, he said. A chill ran through me. Then who is? I asked. He finally looked up, meeting my eyes again, and for the first time since I met him, there was no distance in his gaze. No calculation. Just something direct. I am. The answer landed hard. I felt it in the way my breath caught, in the way my thoughts stalled for just a second before racing again. So this was meant for you, I said slowly. Yes. Then why not send it to you directly? I asked, the question coming out faster now, sharper, because if I could understand the logic, maybe I could understand my place in it. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly, the first real sign of tension I had seen from him. Because sending it to me directly would mean they trust the delivery, he said. And they do not. I blinked, trying to follow. So they sent it through me because you are unpredictable, he finished. Because you are not part of my system. Not part of theirs. He paused for a second, his gaze holding mine. Because you are a risk. The words settled heavily in my chest. Risk. Not victim. Not target. Something else entirely. I leaned back slowly, my mind trying to adjust to that, trying to reshape everything I thought I understood about what was happening. So what does that make me now? I asked. Adrian did not hesitate. Important. The word hit harder than it should have. I shook my head slightly, pushing back against it instinctively. No, I said. No, I am not important. I am just the person who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There is no such thing, he said quietly. I looked at him, frustration flaring again. That is easy for you to say, I shot back. You control everything. Of course nothing feels random to you. For a second, the room felt sharper, like the air itself had tightened. Adrian did not move, but something in his posture shifted, something subtle but unmistakable. I do not control everything, he said. His voice was still calm, but there was something under it now, something deeper, something more honest than anything he had said before. That is why you are here. The words caught me off guard. I blinked, the anger slipping just enough to let something else in. What does that mean? I asked, quieter now. He held my gaze for a long second, like he was deciding how much to say, how much I was ready to hear. It means, he said slowly, someone just moved a piece I did not see coming. A pause. Then, softer, more deliberate. And that piece was you. Silence filled the room again, heavier than before, pressing down on everything I thought I understood about myself, about my place in this. about the idea that I could just step out of it if I wanted to. I looked at the phone in his hand, at the file that had been sent through me without my knowledge, without my permission, and felt something settle deep in my chest, something cold and undeniable. I was not just caught in this anymore. I was part of it, whether I wanted to be or not. The word important did not feel like a promotion. It felt like a warning, like something had just been placed on my shoulders without asking if I could carry it. And the worst part was I was starting to understand that it would not be taken back just because I wanted it to. I looked at Adrian, really looked at him, searching for something human in the way he said it, something that suggested this could still be simple, that I could still step away if I moved fast enough. But there was nothing simple in his eyes, only calculation and something else I could not name yet. So what now? I asked quietly, because that was the only question that mattered anymore. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he glanced back at the phone, at the list still open on the screen, his attention narrowing again like he was already 3 steps ahead of me. Now we verify, he said. Verify what? I pressed. Whether this is real, he replied, or whether it is meant to make me believe something that is not. I frowned slightly, trying to keep up. You think it could be fake? I think nothing is given without a reason, he said calmly. And reasons are rarely what they appear to be. I exhaled slowly, my head starting to ache from trying to process too many layers at once. And where do I fit into that? I asked. Adrian looked at me again, steady, assessing. You are the reason it was delivered the way it was, he said. Which means you are also part of how they expect me to respond. The implication settled in slowly, like everything else tonight. So they are watching you, I said. And me, he added. I glanced toward the glass wall, toward the city beyond it, suddenly aware of how exposed it all felt, how many unseen eyes could exist in a place like this, how easy it would be to believe you were alone when you were not. Then why are we just standing here? I asked, my voice tightening slightly. If they are watching, should we not do something? Adrian's expression did not change, but there was a faint shift in his posture, like the question itself was part of something he had already considered. We are doing something, he said. We are giving them exactly what they expect. I blinked, thrown again. Which is? That I am interested, he replied. That I am engaged. He paused for a second, his gaze holding mine. That I am paying attention. I let out a breath, frustration flickering again. You are not making this easier to understand. It is not supposed to be easy, he said. It is supposed to be precise. Silence settled between us again, but this time it felt sharper, more focused, like the pieces were aligning into something I still could not fully see. I pushed myself up from the chair, needing to move, needing to feel like I had some control over at least that. Then tell me what I am supposed to do, I said. Adrian watched me stand, his gaze following the movement, tracking it in a way that made me feel like nothing I did went unnoticed. You stay close, he said. You observe. And that is it, I asked. That is enough, he replied. I shook my head slightly, pacing once toward the window, then back, the energy in my chest refusing to settle. That does not feel like enough, I said. It feels like waiting. It is, he said. I stopped, turning back to him. And you are okay with that? His answer came without hesitation. I am comfortable with patience. I studied him for a second, the way he said it, the way it sounded less like a choice and more like a rule he had lived by for a long time. I am not, I admitted. I can see that, he said quietly. The faintest edge of something almost like understanding slipped into his tone, and it caught me off guard more than anything else he had said tonight. I looked away first, back toward the city, toward the movement of headlights below, toward something that felt normal even if it was far away. I do not like not knowing, I said. No one does, Adrian replied. The difference is how you react to it. I let that sit for a second, the weight of it settling into the space between us. Then I turned back, my thoughts sharper now, more focused. You said they expect you to respond, I said. What happens if you do not? Adrian's gaze held mine, steady, unflinching. Then they escalate. The word landed quietly, but it carried more weight than anything else. I felt it in the way my chest tightened again, in the way the room seemed to close in just slightly. And if you do respond? I asked. Then they learn, he said. About me. About you. A pause. About how far they can go. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my shoulders refusing to ease. So no matter what, they get something. Yes, he said simply. I let out a small, humorless breath. That does not feel like a good situation. It is not, he agreed. The honesty in that surprised me again, just enough to make me look at him differently, just for a second. I stepped closer to the table, my gaze dropping to the phone still in his hand, to the list that had started all of this. Those names, I said. They mean something to you. It was not a question. He did not deny it. Some of them, he replied. And the others? That is what concerns me. I nodded slowly, the pieces shifting again, rearranging into something that felt more real, more immediate. So this is not just about me, I said. It was never just about you, he replied. I looked up at him, meeting his eyes again, holding the gaze this time, even though it felt like stepping into something deeper than I was ready for. Then why does it feel like I am the one in the middle of it? Adrian did not look away. Because you are, he said. The words settled heavily, final in a way that left no room to argue. I felt it in my chest, in the way my breath caught for just a second before I forced it to steady again. And you are okay with that? I said, putting me in the middle of something I do not understand. His expression did not change, but there was something in his eyes now, something quieter, something that felt closer to the surface than before. No, he said. The answer surprised me. I blinked, caught off guard again. Then why? Because you were already there, he interrupted, his voice still calm, but firmer now. Before you walked through that door, before you asked for help. Silence fell again, heavier this time, more final. I looked at him, at the man who had seen all of this before I did, who had stepped into it without hesitation, who had made decisions I was still trying to understand. And for the first time, I realized something that shifted everything just slightly. He had not pulled me into this. He had just refused to let me walk through it alone. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my chest easing just enough to think clearly again. Then we verify, I said, echoing his earlier words, my voice steadier now. Adrian's gaze held mine for a second longer, then he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Yes, he said. And this time, it did not feel like I was just reacting. It felt like I was stepping into something on purpose. The word verify felt different this time. It did not feel like something he was doing anymore. It felt like something we were stepping into together, and that realization settled into my chest in a way I was not ready to fully understand. I straightened slightly, my mind sharper now, less scattered, like something had shifted from fear into focus. So how do we do it? I asked, my voice steady enough to surprise even me. Adrian watched me for a second, like he was measuring the change, like he was deciding whether it was real or just temporary. Then he stood. We start with the list, he said. He placed the phone on the table between us, the screen still glowing with names and numbers that meant nothing to me and everything to him. I stepped closer, leaning in slightly, forcing myself to look at it differently now, not as something overwhelming, but as something structured, something that could be understood piece by piece. What am I looking for? I asked. Patterns, he replied again, but this time it felt different, more specific, more immediate. Connections. Repetition. Anything that does not belong. I nodded slowly, my eyes moving across the screen, trying to separate what was random from what was intentional, even though I still did not fully understand the context. These look like addresses, I said after a moment, pointing to one of the columns. Adrian glanced down briefly. Some of them are, he confirmed. Others are coordinates. I frowned slightly. Coordinates for what? That is what we are verifying, he said. I exhaled slowly, focusing again, my finger hovering over one of the entries before I tapped it lightly. This one, I said. It is familiar. Adrian's attention sharpened immediately. Why? I hesitated for a second, trying to place it, trying to connect the number to something real. Then it clicked. It is near my office, I said. A block away. Silence fell for a fraction of a second, but it felt heavier than anything else. Adrian's gaze lifted to meet mine, sharper now, more focused than before. Show me, he said. I tapped again, pulling up the map, zooming in until the street layout became clear. My stomach tightened as I recognized it, the intersection, the buildings, the coffee shop I stopped at every morning. Right there, I said quietly. Adrian studied the screen, his expression unreadable, but the tension in the room shifted again, subtle but unmistakable. That is not a coincidence, he said. My pulse picked up, the earlier clarity giving way to something sharper, something more immediate. You think they were watching me there too? I said. I think they were watching something, he replied. You were just part of it. I swallowed, my gaze dropping back to the list, scanning faster now, my mind racing to catch up. What about this one? I said, pointing again. This is 2 blocks from my bus stop. Adrian did not respond right away. He did not need to. The pattern was already forming. I felt it before he said it. They mapped your routine, I whispered. He nodded once. Yes. The word hit harder than anything else tonight. I felt it in my chest, in the way my thoughts suddenly sharpened into something more focused, more urgent. Then this is not just about delivering a message, I said. It is about tracking me. It is about positioning you, Adrian corrected. I looked at him, confusion cutting through the fear again. For what? His gaze held mine, steady, deliberate. That is what we still do not know. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay in the moment, to keep thinking instead of spiraling into everything I could not control. Then we keep going, I said. Adrian did not argue. We went through the list 1 entry at a time, my voice steadying as I pointed out places I recognized, streets I had walked, corners I had passed without thinking twice. Each one added another layer, another piece of a pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. It was not random. It was not scattered. It was precise. By the time we reached the end, my chest felt tight again, but not from panic this time. From understanding. They know my entire routine, I said quietly. Adrian did not look surprised. Yes. I let out a breath, my hands resting on the edge of the table as I tried to process that, the weight of it, the realization that my life had been mapped out in a way I had never considered. Then why send this to you? I asked. If they already have everything they need. Adrian's gaze shifted slightly, his attention turning inward for a moment, like he was running through possibilities I could not see. Because they want me to see it, he said. They want me to know how much they know. A chill ran through me. That is not just a message, I said. That is a warning. Yes, he agreed. I looked back. At the phone, at the list that now felt less like information and more like a statement, something deliberate, something meant to be understood in a very specific way. So what do they want from you? I asked. Adrian did not answer right away. Instead, he reached for the phone again, scrolling back to the top of the list, his eyes narrowing slightly as he looked at something I had not noticed before. Not just from me, he said quietly. From us. The word us landed differently now. Not unfamiliar. Just heavier. What do you mean? I asked. He turned the screen slightly, pointing to a small detail I had missed, something subtle, something easy to overlook if you were not looking for it. A timestamp. Repeated. Across multiple entries. My breath caught. These are not just locations, I said slowly. They are times. Adrian nodded once. Yes. My mind raced, connecting it, building it, understanding it piece by piece. They are predicting where I will be, I said. Not just where I have been. Exactly, he said. The realization hit all at once, sharp and immediate. This was not about the past. It was about the future. About movement. About control. I stepped back slightly, my pulse rising again, the weight of it pressing down harder now. Then they are not just watching, I said. They are planning. Adrian's gaze held mine, steady, unflinching. Yes. Silence filled the room again, but this time it was different. Not heavy, not suffocating. Focused. Directed. Like everything had narrowed down to a single point. I looked at him, at the man who had pulled me into this, or maybe just refused to let me walk into it alone, and for the first time, I felt something shift that was not fear. It was clarity. Then we are not verifying anymore, I said quietly. Adrian's expression did not change, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something that looked almost like agreement. No, he said. We are not. I held his gaze, my voice steady, certain in a way it had not been before. We are ahead of them now. A pause. Just long enough to feel deliberate. Adrian leaned back slightly, studying me again, but this time it felt different, like he was not measuring whether I understood, but how far I was willing to go. Not yet, he said. Then, quieter, more deliberate, but we are close. Close was not enough. I realized that the moment he said it, because close still meant they were moving, still meant they were adjusting. And if they were adjusting, then so were we, and I could feel it in the way the air in the room had changed, like something invisible had shifted direction and now everything depended on what happened next. I leaned over the table again, my eyes scanning the timestamps one more time. But now I was not just looking at them. I was feeling them, like they were not numbers anymore, but moments I had already lived or was about to live without knowing it. These times, I said slowly, my voice steady but tighter than before, they are not random either. Adrian did not respond immediately. He did not need to. He was already looking at them the same way. No, he said after a second. They are aligned. I frowned slightly. Aligned with what? His gaze lifted to meet mine. Your habits. The word hit differently now. Not routine. Not schedule. Habits. Something deeper. Something harder to break. I felt a chill run through me as I thought about it. About how predictable I had been without ever realizing it. How easy it would be to map someone who never thought they needed to be careful. So they are not just predicting where I will be, I said. They are predicting what I will do. Adrian nodded once. Yes. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay in control, to keep thinking instead of letting the fear take over again. Then we change it, I said. The answer came out faster than I expected, sharper, like it had been waiting just beneath the surface. Adrian watched me closely, his expression unreadable for a second. That is one option, he said. What is the other? I asked. We follow it, he replied. Silence fell instantly. I stared at him, trying to process that, trying to understand why anyone would choose to walk directly into something that was clearly designed to control them. You want to do exactly what they expect, I said. I want to see what happens when we do, he corrected. I shook my head slightly. That sounds like a trap. It is, he said. The calm way he said it made my chest tighten. Again, then why would we walk into it? Because sometimes, he said, his voice lower now, more deliberate. The only way to understand a plan is to let it unfold. I looked away for a second, my thoughts racing, weighing the options, trying to find something that felt safe, something that made sense. Or we change everything. I said again, quieter this time. Break the pattern. Make the list useless. Adrian did not dismiss it. That surprised me. That would force them to adapt, he said. Which would show us something as well. I nodded slowly. Then, that is better. Not necessarily, he replied. I frowned. Why not? Because adaptation takes time, he said. And time gives them space to disappear. The words settled heavily between us. I understood what he meant immediately. If we broke the pattern, they would adjust, but they would also hide. And whatever this was, whatever they were trying to do, it would vanish before we could see it clearly. So either we walk into it, I said, or we lose them. Yes. I let out a slow breath, my hands pressing lightly against the edge of the table as I thought it through, really thought it through, not as someone trying to survive, but as someone trying to understand. Then we control it, I said. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Explain. I looked back at the list, at the timestamps, at the pattern that had been built around me without my knowledge. We follow it, I said slowly, but not exactly. He did not interrupt. That meant he was listening. We changed just enough, I continued, my voice gaining steadiness as the idea formed. So they think the pattern still holds, but we are not where they expect us to be. A pause. Then I added, we let them think they are in control. Silence stretched for a second, but this time it felt different. Focused. Intentional. Adrian leaned back slightly, studying me again, but this time there was something else in his expression, something closer to approval. You are learning faster than I expected, he said. I ignored that, focusing instead on the idea, on the plan that was starting to feel real, actionable. If they are watching for exact times and locations, I said, then even a few minutes or a slight shift could change everything. Adrian nodded slowly. Yes. Then we pick. One, I said. 1 point on the list. I tapped the screen again, bringing up the next timestamp. This one, I added. It is soon. He glanced at the time, then at the entry, then back at me. You would normally be where at that time? He asked. I thought about it, about my routine, about the way my days usually moved without me thinking about them. On the subway, I said. Heading home. Adrian's gaze sharpened. And instead, I met his eyes, my pulse picking up again, but this time it was not fear. It was something else. Something sharper. Instead, I am here, I said. With you. The implication hung in the air. If they expected me on that train, at that time, and I was not there, then something would happen. Something would change. Adrian stood slowly, his attention shifting from the table to the door, like the decision had already been made. "Then we move," he said. My breath caught slightly. "Now." He looked at me, steady, certain. "Now." I hesitated for half a second, the reality of what we were about to do settling in. The idea that we were not just reacting anymore, that we were stepping into something on purpose, something controlled but still dangerous in ways I did not fully understand. Then I nodded. "Okay," I said quietly. Adrian turned toward the door, opening it without hesitation. The hallway outside felt different now, sharper, more immediate, like every step carried more weight than before. I followed him, matching his pace, my mind running through everything we had just said, everything we had just decided. "What are we looking for?" I asked as we walked. "A reaction," he replied. "From who?" "Anyone who was expecting you to be somewhere else." The answer sent a chill through me, but I did not slow down. We moved back toward the main floor of the club, the sound of music rising again as the door opened, the crowd still moving, still unaware, still part of a world that felt completely separate from what was happening just beneath the surface. I stepped out beside him, my eyes scanning the room instinctively now, looking for anything that did not belong, anything that reacted differently, anything that changed. "Do not look for them," Adrian said quietly. "Let them reveal themselves." I nodded slightly, forcing myself to relax my posture, to blend back into the movement of the room, even though everything inside me felt anything but relaxed. Seconds passed, then a minute. Nothing obvious. No sudden shifts. No clear signals. Just the same controlled chaos of a place that never stopped moving. "Maybe nothing happens," I said quietly, more to test the idea than because I believed it. Adrian did not respond right away. His gaze moved slowly across the room, precise, patient, like he was waiting for something very specific. Then, almost imperceptibly, his focus locked onto something. "Something already did," he said. My breath caught. "What?" He did not look at me. His attention stayed fixed, sharp, unblinking. "The man by the bar," he said quietly. He just checked his watch. A pause. Then, softer, more deliberate. "At the exact time you were supposed to be somewhere else." My breath slowed without my permission the moment he said it, like my body understood before my mind did that something had shifted, something small but precise, the kind of movement you would miss if you were not looking for it, and now I was looking. "Do not stare," Adrian added quietly, his voice low enough that it barely cut through the music. I forced my eyes away from the bar, even though every instinct told me to look directly at the man he had just pointed out. Instead, I turned slightly, picking up a glass from a passing tray without thinking, using the reflection in it to catch the movement behind me. The man stood exactly where Adrian said he would be. Mid-30s. Clean suit. Nothing about him stood out, which was exactly why he did. His posture was too still, his attention too controlled, and his hand, just moments ago, had moved to his wrist. Time. My pulse picked up, not from fear this time, but from recognition. "He is waiting for something," I murmured. Adrian's response came immediately. He was. A subtle difference. Past tense. I swallowed, my grip tightening slightly around the glass. "And now?" "Now he is adjusting," Adrian said. I watched through the reflection as the man's gaze shifted, not scanning the room randomly, but moving with purpose, like he was searching for something that was no longer where it was supposed to be. Me. The realization landed sharp and clear. He expected me to be somewhere else, I said. Yes. And now? I am not. No, silence stretched between us for a second, but it was not empty. It was filled with understanding, with the weight of a plan that had just been disrupted. I set the glass down slowly, my fingers steady even though my chest felt tight. "So what does he do next?" I asked. Adrian's gaze remained fixed, unblinking, like he was tracking every movement the man made. "He confirms," he said. "Confirms what?" "Whether this is a mistake," Adrian replied, "or a change." I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm, to stay in control, even though everything inside me was alert now, aware in a way I had never been before. "And if he decides it is a change?" I asked. Adrian did not hesitate. "Then he reports it." The word report sent a quiet chill through me. This was not just one man. It was a system, a structure, something organized enough to map my entire day and precise enough to notice when one detail shifted. "Then we are not just being watched," I said quietly. We are being tracked in real time. Yes. I glanced at Adrian, at the way he stood there, completely still, completely in control, like this was exactly where he wanted to be. And you are okay with that? I said. It was not an accusation. Not really. Just an observation. His answer came just as calm. I expected it. I let that settle for a second, the difference between expecting something and fearing it becoming clearer in my mind. So what now? I asked again. Adrian's gaze shifted slightly, just enough that I knew something had changed. Now we give him something to report, he said. My breath caught. What does that mean? He finally looked at me, his eyes steady, deliberate, like whatever came next was not random, not reactive, but chosen. It means, he said quietly, we stop being unpredictable. That did not make sense. Not at first. But you said, unpredictable does not mean uncontrolled. He interrupted, his voice still calm, but firmer now. Right now, he does not know what to expect. That makes him cautious. A pause. Caution slows communication. I frowned slightly, trying to follow. And you want him to move faster. Yes. The logic clicked into place, sharp and immediate. If the man believed the pattern had simply shifted, not broken, then he would act with confidence, not hesitation. He would report faster. He would expose more. So we give him a new pattern, I said slowly. Adrian nodded once. Exactly. My pulse picked up again, but this time it felt different. Focused. Directed. What kind of pattern? I asked. He glanced around the room briefly, his attention moving like a scan, quick and precise, then returned to me. A visible one, he said. Something he can follow. I swallowed, the implication settling in. You want him to follow me again? Yes. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, the memory of earlier still fresh, the feeling of being watched, of being tracked without knowing why. But this time was different. This time I knew. And this time, I said quietly, we are the ones leading. Adrian's gaze held mine, steady, certain. Yes. I nodded slowly, the decision forming before I could second guess it. Okay. He did not react with surprise or approval. Just a small shift, like the plan had moved forward exactly as expected. Walk, he said. I took a breath, then turned, moving through the crowd at a natural pace, not too fast, not too slow, forcing myself to blend in even though every sense felt heightened, every movement around me sharper than before. I did not look back. I did not need to. I could feel it. The shift, the attention, the presence that followed just far enough to stay unnoticed by anyone who was not looking for it. He is moving. Adrian's voice came quietly from just behind me, close enough to guide, far enough to avoid attention. Do not change your pace. I nodded slightly, keeping my steps even, my posture relaxed, even as my pulse beat louder in my ears. Where are we going? I asked under my breath. Anywhere, he replied. It is not the destination that matters. That made sense. This was about movement, about behavior, about creating something that could be observed and reported. We moved toward the edge of the room, closer to the exit, the music fading slightly as the space opened up. I reached for the door without hesitation, pushing it open and stepping out into the cooler air of the hallway beyond. The shift was immediate. Quieter, sharper, realer. I slowed just enough to feel it. The presence behind me. Not close, not obvious, but there. He followed. I said softly. Adrian's response came just as calm. Yes. I exhaled slowly, my hand resting briefly against the wall as I steadied myself, not from fear, but from the weight of what we were doing. So now what? I asked. A pause. Then Adrian stepped beside me, his presence close, controlled, certain. Now, he said quietly, we see how far he is willing to go. The hallway felt narrower than before, like the walls had shifted just enough to remind me that this was no longer about space. It was about movement, about direction, about the invisible line we were walking and the one following behind us. I kept my pace steady, my breathing even though every sense in my body was tuned to the presence behind me, the subtle echo of footsteps that matched but never mirrored, close enough to confirm, far enough to deny. He is maintaining distance, I said quietly, my voice low, controlled. Adrian walked beside me, his posture unchanged, his attention not on me but on everything else, like he was tracking the entire environment at once. That means he is confident, he replied. Or trained. The word train settled into my chest with a different kind of weight. This was not random. This was not someone acting alone. This was structure. I nodded slightly, more to myself than to him. Then we push him, I said. Adrian glanced at me briefly, something sharp flickering in his eyes. Carefully. We reached the end of the hallway, where it split into two directions, one leading deeper into the building, the other toward a quieter exit. I slowed just enough to make it look natural, like I was deciding where to go, even though the decision had already been made the moment we stepped out here. Left, Adrian murmured under his breath. I turned without hesitation, my steps continuing smoothly, my posture relaxed, like I had nowhere specific to be, even though everything about this moment felt precise. The footsteps behind us adjusted. Not faster, not slower, just aligned. My chest tightened slightly. He is still with us? I said. Yes. We moved deeper into the quieter section of the building, where the sound of the club faded almost completely, replaced by the low hum of something distant, something mechanical, something constant. The lighting shifted too, softer, dimmer, casting longer shadows that made every movement feel more defined. I could feel it now, the tension building, not sharp, not sudden, but steady, like something was tightening inch by inch. This is where he decides, Adrian said quietly. Decides what? I asked. Whether to stay in observation, he replied, or move into confirmation. I swallowed, the words settling into place, the meaning behind them clearer than I wanted it to be. Observation was safe, controlled, distant. Confirmation meant closer, direct. I slowed slightly, just enough to test it, just enough to see if the presence behind us would react. It did. A fraction closer. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for me. He is closing the distance, I said. Adrian's voice remained calm. Good. The word surprised me. I glanced at him briefly. Good. It means he is committed, he said. And commitment creates mistakes. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay steady, to trust the rhythm we had created, even though every instinct told me to turn, to confront, to break the tension instead of letting it build. So what do we do now? I asked. Adrian did not answer right away. Instead, he slowed just slightly, enough that our pace shifted from casual to deliberate, like we were no longer just walking, but moving with intention. We stop, he said. My breath caught for a fraction of a second. Stop. Yes. There was no hesitation in his voice. No doubt. Just certainty. I nodded once, then let my steps come to a natural halt near a narrow window at the end of the corridor, turning slightly as if I was looking out, as if I was taking a moment, as if nothing about this was controlled. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything else tonight. No music. No crowd. Just the faint hum of the building and the presence behind us that was now impossible to ignore. I did not turn. I did not need to. I could feel it. Closer now. Waiting. Adrian stepped beside me, his posture relaxed, his gaze forward, like we were just two people pausing in a quiet hallway. Now, he said softly, we wait. Seconds stretched. Then longer. The kind of silence that forces movement, that pushes people to act just to break it. I felt it. The shift behind us, the hesitation turning into decision. One step, then another. Not rushed, not careless. Just enough. He is coming closer, I whispered. Yes. Adrian's voice remained steady, but there was a sharpness to it now, something more focused, more precise. Do not move. I stayed still, my eyes fixed on the glass in front of me, using the faint reflection to track what was happening without turning. The man approached slowly, his posture controlled, his expression neutral, like he was just another person passing through, even though nothing about this was casual anymore. He stopped a few feet behind us, close enough to confirm, not close enough to reveal. This is it, I said quietly, more to myself than to Adrian. This is confirmation. Adrian did not respond. He did not need to. The moment spoke for itself. Another second passed. Then another. The man shifted slightly, like he was deciding whether to speak, whether to move, whether to take the next step that would change everything. My pulse pounded in my ears, but my body stayed still, exactly the way Adrian had instructed, exactly the way this moment required. Then, finally, the man spoke. You are not where you are supposed to be, he said. The words were calm, measured, almost polite, but they carried something else underneath. Something certain. Something that confirmed everything we had just uncovered. I closed my eyes for a brief second, letting the weight of that settle in, letting the reality of it anchor itself fully. Then I opened them again, my voice steady, controlled, different from before. Neither are you, I replied. Silence followed, but this time it felt different. Not tense, not uncertain, balanced. Like the line between us had finally been drawn. Adrian shifted slightly beside me, just enough to signal that the moment had changed, that this was no longer observation, no longer testing. This was interaction. Now we know, he said quietly. And for the first time since this started, I understood exactly what he meant. This was not about being followed anymore. This was about being found. The moment the words left his mouth, everything became still in a way that felt unnatural, like the world itself had paused just long enough to see what we would do next. And for the first time since this started, I was not guessing anymore. I was not reacting. I was standing inside something real. I turned slowly, not rushed, not hesitant, just enough to face him fully, to close the distance that had been carefully maintained until now. Up close, he looked exactly like he had before. Controlled, neutral, forgettable. And that was the point. You said I was not where I was supposed to be, I said, my voice steady, my eyes holding his without flinching. So tell me where I was supposed to be. He studied me for a second, like he was recalculating something, like the answer he expected no longer fit the situation in front of him. On the train, he said finally. Heading home. I nodded once. That was the plan. Adrian shifted slightly beside me, his presence grounding, steady, like a line I could stand behind without needing to look back. Plans change, he said quietly. The man's gaze flicked to Adrian, just for a second, and that was enough to confirm everything we needed to know. This was not just about me anymore. It never had been. You changed it, the man said, his tone still calm, but something underneath it had shifted, something tighter, something more aware. Adrian did not deny it. Yes. Silence stretched again, but this time it felt different. Not uncertain, not tense, defined, like everyone in this moment understood exactly what it was. The man's posture adjusted slightly, not defensive, not aggressive, just recalibrating. That complicates things, he said. I let out a quiet breath, my arms relaxing at my sides, my body no longer locked in the same tension it had been carrying all night. For you? I replied. Another pause. Then, for the first time, something almost like a smile touched the corner of his mouth, faint and brief. For everyone, he corrected. Adrian's voice cut in, low and precise. Then simplify it. The man looked at him again, more directly this time. You already know what this is, he said. Not a question. Adrian did not respond right away. That told me enough. Say it anyway, Adrian said after a second. The man hesitated, just for a fraction of a moment, and in that hesitation, I saw it. The shift from control to exposure. It is a proposal, he said. The word landed differently than I expected. Not threat. Not warning. Something else. Something more calculated. A proposal, I repeated, my voice quieter now, trying to understand how that fit into everything that had happened tonight. That is what you call tracking someone's entire day. It is what we call getting your attention, he replied. I let out a small, humorless breath. You could have just sent a message. We did, he said, his gaze flicking briefly to the phone still in Adrian's hand. Right. The email. The file. The list. I felt the weight of it settle again, heavier now that I understood what it was meant to do. Not just inform. Not just warn. Position. So what is the proposal? I asked. Adrian did not stop me this time. He let the question stand. The man looked between us, measuring something I could not see, then answered. We are offering an exchange, he said. Information for cooperation. Silence followed, but it was not empty. It was full of meaning, full of implication, full of everything that had not been said yet. Cooperation with who? I asked. With us, he replied simply. I shook my head slightly, trying to piece it together, trying to understand why me, why now, why this. And where do I fit into that? I asked. The man's gaze returned to me, steady, deliberate. You already do. The answer sent a quiet chill through me, but this time I did not step back from it. I leaned into it. Because I delivered the message, I said. Because you proved something, he corrected. I frowned slightly. What did I prove? He held my gaze, unblinking. That you could reach him. The words landed harder than anything else. I felt it in my chest, in the way my breath caught for just a second before I forced it to steady again. This was never about the file. Not really. It was about access. About connection. About me. Adrian's voice came low beside me. And now that she has, he said, what exactly are you expecting? The man's attention shifted back to him, the dynamic in the room shifting with it, subtle but undeniable. That depends, he said, on whether you are willing to listen. Adrian did not move, did not react. I am listening, he said. The man nodded once, like that was enough, like that was the opening he needed. Then listen carefully, he said. The air in the hallway felt heavier now, like everything was narrowing down to this moment, this exchange, this line that was about to be crossed whether we were ready for it or not. The information you received tonight is incomplete, he continued. It is only a fragment. My pulse picked up again, sharper this time. Of what? I asked. He looked at me, just for a second, and in that second, I saw something I had not seen before. Not control, not calculation, something closer to certainty. Of something much bigger than either of you realize, he said. Silence followed, but this time it did not feel like a pause. It felt like a shift, like the ground beneath everything we thought we understood had just moved slightly, just enough to change the direction of everything that came next. Adrian's presence beside me did not change, but I felt it differently now, more aware of it, more aware of what it meant to be standing here with him instead of anywhere else. And what happens if we say no? I asked quietly. The man's expression did not change. Then nothing changes, he said. A pause. Then, softer, more deliberate. Except you will not know what you just stepped into. The words settled heavily, final in a way that left no easy answer, no clear path, just a choice that felt bigger than anything that had come before it. I glanced at Adrian, just for a second, not for permission, not for direction, but for alignment, for confirmation that I was not the only one feeling the weight of this moment. He did not look at me, but I felt it anyway. The same understanding, the same shift, the same realization that this was not the end of something. It was the beginning. I turned back to the man, my voice steady, clear, certain in a way it had not been before. Then you better start talking, I said. Because whatever this was, whatever I had been pulled into, I was not running anymore.